Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Melanie over from the Hopkins County Innovate and Caffeinate, and I am paired up with Murray Callaway Innovate and Caffeinate and Christian County Innovate and Caffeinate. And we are so excited to have you all with us today. We have a really exciting weekly presentation. I am very excited to introduce a longtime friend of mine. We've got Chris Bruce from, I'm watching on multiple screens here. We've got Chris Bruce. He's a CPA with Bruce and Company, and he is going to be talking to you all today a little bit about some programs and things that are available for small businesses. And some of those things are, tax credits, retention tax credit, a little bit about the PPP and the EIDL, a lot of the things that people have had questions about. And so he's going to hit some high points of these, tell you a little bit about what's available for small businesses. Those are the questions that we're getting calls on every day of, okay, this has changed. This has changed. I heard about this. What can I do now? And so we're going to let Chris talk with you a little bit about what's available and then kind of how you access those things. Who do you call? Who do you talk to? And what we want you to do is to feel free, whatever feed you're watching on, whether it's Innovation Station or Rise or the Innovate and Caffeinate pages, we want to invite you to ask questions. We'll be monitoring those questions, and we're going to push those out to him here at the end of the event. And so thank you so much for tuning in. Please share this on your feed. Let others know that Innovate and Caffeinate is going on. And so I'm going to throw it over to Chris and let Chris start talking.
What I'll kind of like Melanie mentioned there, my goal here today is just to kind of give you a broad amount of information as to what options small businesses, small, medium-sized businesses have right now under the current circumstances that we're all operating in. It's kind of an interesting time we're living in, and I'll be honest with you, from our perspective at our accounting firm, it's affected us as well. I don't know how there could be any business or any individual that in some form or capacity hasn't been affected by this COVID-19 virus. And so it's really changed how we do things. A lot of what we've done over the last month and a half, 6 weeks or so in our office is really try to communicate with clients some of the options that they have with a lot of the shutdowns, things of that nature. It's really kind of changed up the dynamics of how most of us do business. So kind of what I'll do is jump in today and kind of show you what, I'll start out by showing you kind of a summary of what's happened and kind of how the tax procedure or tax policies have been designed to affect or to actually assist taxpayers. So with that, I'll kind of jump in here and I'll look at a couple of slides. But first thing I want to focus in on is really the major phases that we've actually gone through. So in February and March, I think I can honestly say most of us were really unaware of what was going to happen. A lot of employees were sent home. A lot of the businesses were not able to operate, whether due to quarantine or shutdowns that were forced by at the federal, state, and local government levels. And then towards the end of March, we really moved into a situation where our federal governments were extending income tax deadlines. They were voting in new tax policies such as the CARES Act, the Payroll Protection Program, things of that nature that really have kind of gotten us to where we are today. So in April, we started these programs, and then now we've kind of shifted into May where it's, okay, now the availability of these funding is coming into play. We're able to defer some of our income taxes, or defer income tax payments until July. We're able to defer some of our payroll tax payments. And then we're also able to apply for some of these loans and grants that are available. So May is kind of where we are now, and I think as we shift through this, of course, I can say this, honestly, none of us know where this will go, where it'll end up. But kind of the way the tax policy was designed, June through July, August, those are going to be times where I think we're really rebuilding the infrastructure of our businesses and trying to, in some form or capacity, get back to normal. And I think that's what we'll see. So in quick recap, obviously February, March, let's protect our health, and once we roll through there, the ending result is let's rebuild our infrastructure. And I think we'll find that a lot of our tax policies are really in that capacity. So one of the things I think it's important to point out is, and like I said, I'll do this on kind of a high level. I can't. We don't think we'll have enough time today to go through the full detail because there's so much there. So I think it's really important to be sure to talk to your CPAs, talk to your bankers, your financial advisors. With a lot of these programs, those are going to be the crucial individuals that you'll want to speak with. But this will be just kind of a high level area that we can kind of look into and see. One thing I want to point out, probably the most, if I was going to say in my practice, probably 50% of the phone calls I've gotten in the last 4 to 5 weeks have been in regards to the PPP program, which is the Payroll Protection Program. It's really actually been an excellent way to fund the small businesses. Essentially, that's any business that had less than 500 employees in one location. So I think that's important to point out that this really affects probably the majority of the listeners that we're talking on this conference call today. So what that's designed to do, and like many of these programs, it's really to benefit employers to be able to provide financial resources to paid employees so that once we get out of this pandemic, we can really focus in on the fact that we were able to salvage our economy because we kept our employees paid. We had a workforce that was intact when everything came back to somewhat normal, if it ever does get back that way. But one of the key components of the PPP program is it's essentially a loan which can be converted into a grant to cover the payroll costs and some other costs associated with your business like rent, utilities. But essentially, it's focusing on providing that for about 2.5 months worth of payroll. So really, if you're a small business and you've been shut down, this is an excellent opportunity to be able to fund your payroll, work with your employees, keep them paid, and have a good workforce that will all be ready to come back to work once things are back to normal. Now, one of the key components I think it's important to point out with the PPP program, I think the Department of Treasury recognized that, and the federal government recognized the best way to get this funding out was through the SBA, and then also using the banking institutions as a forum to really push this money into the economy, and they've done an excellent job at that. One thing I will point out is, this has been one of the PPP program has a lot of issues that are unanswered as far as how to get the debt write-off. But I think it can be, it can be crucial to discuss this with your CPA first to see if your business will qualify and how that would actually affect you in the long run. And then also, I think it's important to talk to your banker to see the feasibility of this. Honestly, like the first round of money that came through with the PPP program, it was gone within a few weeks. So this is one of those topics I think you need to, if you haven't already done so that's interests you, I think it's very important to be in touch with those trusted advisors that you might be speaking with and talk to them today, because this is something that will run out. So it won't focus a whole lot of attention on that, but I do want to mention that it's available. It's designed to help small businesses. And there is the ability, even though it's labeled as a loan, to convert to a grant. It can be, if used for those specific purposes, such as payroll, under certain circumstances, it actually can be written off and non-taxable to you as well. So it's important to point that out. There are some finer details. We're waiting on information from the SBA to discuss or to provide more details, Department of Treasury. It's one of those things that there's a lot of unanswered questions, and when programs like this roll out real fast, it leaves room for a lot of questions. So definitely, if you're interested, I would advise you to touch base with your CPA and bankers. The other thing I'll point out too is the EIDL loans, which basically is the Economic Injury and Disaster Loan Program. I think this is a very important option you have as well. It gives you the availability as a business owner to get some small business loans, low interest rates, up to $10,000 of that can actually be rolled into the PPP program and forgiven. So that's important to mention as well. There's a lot of other options, paid sick leave, family leave. There was an expansion of that. Essentially, that's for any payroll, any employees that had to be off under certain circumstances because of the quarantine. There's about 6 different scenarios, and we won't go into the finer details of that. But those options are available that you can continue to pay and get tax credits. Now, when I refer to income tax or tax credits, what I'm referring to is the ability of you make that payment and that tax credit actually reduce either a payroll tax or possibly an income tax. It's a direct offset of that tax portion. It's quite a bit different than a deduction. So these are very lucrative, and I think it's important to note that when the federal government designed, or actually Congress, both houses, the executive branch, when they designed and worked to develop some of these policies, I think they really had it in mind for small businesses, and they really saw the value of your employees. So these tax credits are very lucrative, and I think it's important to note that these provide you, even though you may not be interested in seeking out some of these programs or these tax credits, I think with the environment that we're in, it really allows small businesses to continue and have a competitive advantage. So it's important to consider them at least in your planning and consider how that might affect your business for the long term. If in anything, these are insurance policies essentially that you can actually maintain cash flow and continue business operations. So that kind of goes in line with this employer retention credit. A lot of individuals that I'll be working with may or may not have received the PPP program, but essentially the employer retention credit is kind of another offset or a way in which all businesses can kind of be compensated for continuing to pay employees during this pandemic or shutdown mode. But essentially, with most of the people we're speaking with today, I think this will probably be applicable to, but predominantly what we're looking at is when we focus in on who actually qualifies for this, the credit's designed so that eligible employers may receive a 50% credit for qualifying, which is up to $10,000. So essentially, if you meet certain circumstances that are affected, this law or tax benefit addresses, you could actually get a tax credit back of about $10,000 per employee. So I think it's important to know that covers a period of time with your employees of most of this pandemic on a lot of your rank and file employees, and kind of gets them through this period of time. But essentially, what you're looking at, if you've had to be eligible, you have to have been partially suspended, either by a result of a government ordering or another option is you've had a 50% drop in your gross receipts when you compare those to the prior year's quarter as well. So those are some of the just basics of that that are available. But I think it's important to know when you're considering which route to go, sit down, run the numbers, talk to a CPA or another professional, and I think they'll really be able to point out how this affects your business. It's important to work with someone who understands your business, knows that most people are not going to, or most professionals, if they haven't worked with you, they're probably not going to be able to specifically pinpoint which area or which option would be best for you. And I think that's important to note from the standpoint of find someone that's a trusted tax advisor or financial advisor that can help you and work through these with you. I know in our practice, it's always good to talk to clients ahead of time. You know, accountants are oftentimes we're seen as historians or tax advisors are. We see things after the fact, maybe in some cases, you could be working on a return when the event occurred 18 months prior to that. And I think it's important, I know in our office, and also most of the professionals I speak with, it's important to get ahead of the game, be on top of these things, evaluate. None of us have a crystal ball that we can actually look into and say, hey, this is specifically what's going to happen. It's going to work out perfect. But I think we can mold and kind of shape all the results if we can look through and evaluate your business. So I think there's no person out there that knows your business better than yourself as a small business owner. But also it's good to have those trusted advisors that can kind of work through some of these retention credits, capitalize on that, and really push through and make the best decisions for you. So one of the things that, you know, I really like to point out is we have these options for credits, for retention credits, but there's also some other things that are going to, I think, will be beneficial to clients. You have the ability right now to delay some of your employer's portion of the Social Security tax with your payroll. This is kind of one of those things that, as an accountant, someone who works with a lot of clients on their cash flow management, how they're budgeting, it's really important to know that you can defer that payment into almost some portion of this into 2021. But I think it's important to know that a deferral means you're still going to have to pay that. So when I'm doing budgeting with clients, I really like to focus in and say, hey, we can defer this, we can kick this can down the road, but those are things that you will have to pay at some stage. That does help cash flow management. It's a great opportunity if you get in kind of a bind with your cash that you actually can defer that into the next year. But it's always good to point out that from a budgeting standpoint, we want to have that available and factored into our monthly planning. And that goes to show, I think, one of the things I pointed earlier is most of us, from a business standpoint, individual standpoint, had an automatic extension to file your tax returns. Almost every state, federal and local government, acknowledge the July 15th deadline at this point. And I think what we're going to see over the next couple of months is a real need to manage your cash appropriately. What we're going to find is all of a sudden we have first quarter estimates, second quarter estimates, and then federal, state, and local income taxes all due July 15th. Every state is slightly different. There's some different rules there. But from a general point, July 15th is going to become a very crucial time frame for small businesses. So we really need to be planning when we talk about deferring tax payments, things of that nature. We really need to be looking at the dates, looking and seeing, how that's going to affect the bottom line. Small businesses are heavily reliant on cash flow. It's a crucial. I've always heard the statement that cash is king, and I truly believe that when I'm working with clients that have maybe issues financially, one of the things we're looking at is how they can actually manage and looking at the cash flow statement. So those are important things to know. There's a lot of other opportunities out there, and I'll hit these pretty quick as we go through here. But, a lot of the clients I've dealt with have really had to analyze whether they lay employees off, file unemployment, if that's the right decision. With the federal government's extra $600 added to the unemployment benefits, that makes it some employers are having a hard time justifying keeping their employees on the payroll because those employees can essentially have more income coming through on a weekly basis under unemployment. So you really have to analyze these scenarios. Another good, quick point, and I'll kind of wrap things up here. One of the changes that I've seen I think will be applicable, especially with small business owners, there's a lot of programs that are available in the past for educational assistance that you can offer educational programs where an employer basically pays up to, historically it's been around $5,000 towards employees' education, and it's a tax-free benefit. Well, one of the things that the CARES Act did, it actually expanded that to student loan payments. So, if you want a good incentive to offer a package to your employees, young employees maybe coming out of college, and a lot of those individuals are I have a significant amount of debt, one of a good, package to offer to them would be, hey, we've got this program between now and the end of the year. We can pay some of your student loan interest up to $5,250 under this educational assistance program that we have. Those are the things I think you really got to sit down with your tax advisor, sit down with your financial advisors, and iron out and say, hey, how can we offer a good package to our employees? Make sure they're whole, make sure our business is able to stay afloat, make sure we all have a competitive advantage. And so there's a lot of incentives like that are available. So with that, I think I can't stress it enough. It's important to, there's a lot going on in our tax environment, our financial world. Businesses are probably in more trying times than they've ever been, from just the basic, hey, is my business going to survive? I think it's important to know that these programs that are all available, the things I mentioned, this is a small portion of what was included in the CARES Act. So I really stress meeting with your advisors, going through these things, analyzing how this affects your business. And remember, these things will allow small businesses to continue and have a competitive advantage. And I think they're well worth looking into and meeting and working with your employees to see what works best with them. So that's a very broad, I'll kind of, a quick overview of what's available. But if you have any questions, I'll turn this back over to Melanie, and we'll go from there.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much. We have a lot of people who are tuning in today from all across Western Kentucky. And so this has been great information to share. As I know it's constantly changing for you all, all of our entities are trying to push out information to small businesses and share what's happening, and it's changing every single day and sometimes minute by minute. And so all of this was great information. We've already had people asking, can you share those slides with us? Is there, a PDF version of something that we can get? So we already have people asking for some of that. One of the questions that just came in on my end is for kind of you specifically, what does the next 6 months look like for a CPA?
It's going to be interesting. I did fewer tax returns in April than I've ever done. I'll be honest with you. I spent the first 2 weeks of April, 1 week just reading some of the laws and seeing what actually was going to transpire from a law standpoint. I think we're going to see so many changes. And, one of the things that's interesting is oftentimes Congress passes a law, and then the various regulatory agencies, they interpret it and they write the regulations that go with it. I think over the next 6 months, we're actually going to be trying to find out as much information, reading regulations, and actually just trying to meet with our clients, go over this information, try to relay it, get out ahead of the game. And the PPP program, really, a lot of those people have already gotten the money, so that 8-week time frame is already in process. So we're looking to really talk to them, find out more information on debt relief. I think there'll be a whole lot less income tax return preparation and a whole lot more consulting with clients to make sure that they can stay operating and stay afloat. It's going to be an interesting time. I think our offices we have about 10 professionals here, so we're all looking at this every day. There's not a day that goes by that we don't talk about the CARES Act.
Sure. I think that's what was one of the best pieces of information for me to even hear is, we've had all these calls saying, oh my gosh, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, the money was all gone. What do I do? And so now we're in a phase where, money's back in the PPP. The EIDL just opened up for agriculture yesterday. We've had some changes, but still, okay, if I miss this window, that there are still other things available, that those are not the only two options. And because those seem to be the two biggest ones that have been pushed out even nationwide, those are the two names that people know. So learning about some of these other credits and just knowing that there are other things that your business can do if you didn't apply for the PPP or didn't, get the PPP. One of the questions that just came in as well is, if someone only received through the EIDL the $1,000 per employee, should they reapply? A lot of people are asking about the $10,000. Originally it was said to be $10,000 then it got changed to 1,000. Do we see that changing at all?
From my perspective, I don't see it changing. I know there was a lot of information up front that said, hey, you could go ahead and get this $10,000 immediately. And then it basically went to, no, we're going to do $1,000 per employee. I think it'll be difficult to get that again. But like I said, everything's changing. I can give you an answer today and say this is exactly how it's, but I think there'll be more information to come out in the days ahead. And it's one of those things where I think, honestly, the federal government said, hey, we got to get money out quick. And so a lot of the finer details weren't ironed out. And but honestly, I think that'll be a difficult thing to reapply and get some more money.
Awesome. I think that's all the questions that we've had come in right at this minute. You know, as you all are watching this, people will be watching it all through the day. So as you all are watching this, please feel free to, you know, still comment some questions. We can always send those to Chris. Remember that this will be permanently on our Facebook page, so you can continue to share that, and it will also go out in our newsletter. I'm trying to watch a couple other screens and make sure there's no other last minute questions. But otherwise, Chris, thank you so much for doing this today. I know it's kind of hard to prepare for something like this with changes every day, but I appreciate you doing, you know, these last, you know, these most up to date as you can as of today. We really appreciate you stepping in. And I think, you know, the key takeaway today is there are still things that your business can do. There are options, but that you really have to be strategic, making sure that you're talking to the right people that know what's available and know your business specifically. And I think that's a great takeaway from today. And so Tamala is going to throw up some slides up here on the screen in just a minute. You know, one of the things that we want to remind you, we announced this last week, but we have added another kind of hub to our Innovate and Caffeinate community. And so we want to welcome Christian County Innovate and Caffeinate. Their chamber is helping to kick this off, and we are so excited to have them on board with us. Obviously, unfortunately, they will not be able to host an in-person meeting for the foreseeable future, but we are so excited to have them virtually. And when they are able to kick off in person, we can't wait to get a group from Murray and from Madisonville and from some of our other communities and go support them when they actually officially kick this off in person. But until then, you know, we will support them online. Make sure that you go and like their Facebook page. They do have their Christian County Innovate Facebook page now up and running. And if you're watching from another community, we really invite you to contact me. I'm Melanie. My email address is down there at the bottom. It's mtap@westcentralky.com. If your community wants to join Innovate and Caffeinate and you want to be a part of sharing resources and entrepreneur stories, please give us a call. Currently, we have Hopkins County, Murray Callaway County, and Christian County. We've got talks with a few other communities that we hope to get on board with this as well. But we are really excited to see this grow in Western Kentucky and be able to share resources and support for our entrepreneurs and small businesses. And so next week, join us again right here on our Facebook pages. We are streaming this through, I think there's about 6 different Facebook pages today. So we're doing this every week, Wednesday at 8:30 in the morning. Please join us. Next week, Christian County will be leading us off, and they have a local presenter that they are going to be sharing. And so especially it being their first week, we really want to get a good team of support to rally around them. And we know that their presenter is going to have great information for small businesses as well. I think he is actually an entrepreneur himself. And, you know, that's kind of what this is about, is entrepreneurs sharing their story, and especially during this time, just staying connected. And so thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next Wednesday. Bye.